Terrific. Good evening, everybody. You just got a glimpse of Chris Nunan, my guest for this evening, but Julian Freeman from the Stars of Wellbeing. Another chance to meet somebody new, talk about how they're living their life, talk about how I'm living my life, I guess, and share that with you and see where that conversation takes us. So any questions you'd like to ask us, if you just email me, julian@starsofwellbeing.com. That'd be brilliant. Let's get the rest of the admin out of the way early. If you haven't watched anything from Stars of Wellbeing and you'd like to keep up with what's going on, then there's a box on the page that you're probably at to sign up for our newsletter, and I only email once a week, and you'll get up to date with what I'm doing and with the hangouts and so on. So that's all wonderful. And tonight we will probably go about 45 minutes because I don't believe in making it long. Let's make it interesting and see how it goes, and just enjoy our time together. So that's that. A little bit of introduction about Chris. Interestingly, I met Chris is in Aarhus in Denmark, and I'm in North Yorkshire in the UK. So we're divided by the North Sea, and I met Chris in Spain, strangely. I went to film one of my really lovely opportunities from this year, just going with the flow, was to go with my friends Sheila Massand and Yoga Mark and film Amy Chen Mills, which is going to be coming on Living from Wisdom after I've finished getting Dickon Bettinger's last workshop up there. And I'm really loving that resource that's becoming. I'd never imagined that it would become, 5 workshops from 4 of the world's leading sharers of principles. Wonderful. So Living from Wisdom is becoming a great resource, especially for people who can't get to the workshop side because you get whole workshops. Anyway, advert over. But I went to Spain, and I was thinking that it should be about the filming. And in my old life, in my old way, I would have been very planned. I would have just flown in, done the filming, flown out, done a professional job, gone home, and got on with whatever it was in my business. But already before I went, I thought, no, I'm going to go a little bit earlier and leave myself a full day there afterwards just to hang out and be with the people that were there. And really, that turned out for me to be the magic. Meeting Amy, meeting Chris and Doris and Gareth and everybody that was there. It was fantastic. But particularly, I think Chris and I just kind of hit it off, and we were having just a good feeling, just a really good feeling in the days that we were there. And I came away, as is always the case with these things. Maybe you think you're going for some reason, but if you're open to it, there's always something else that's magical there. And Chris Nunan, it was you. Do you need any more introduction than that?
Well, Chris Nunan, and I live in Denmark, as you said. One of the things why you wanted to make this talk, I guess, was because of a story I told in Spain of my own journey.
Yeah, fantastic.
And there's so many synchronicities sometimes. Because sometimes things seem to work together without us. Just something bigger is going on somewhere in our life, and that happened for me 5 years ago. This is before I heard about the principles, and really, I must say that when I heard and started understanding something about the principles, I was just like, oh yeah, this is what now I get it. I understood better what was going on at the time. So I tell this story also in other forums. So I think it's a very important story in a way, because maybe it can be of inspiration for you other guys. So in 2009, I was sitting at home here together with Doris and in our couch, and all of a sudden I had this strange feeling in my body, and I started getting some kind of red spots and a very strange feeling in my body. I looked at these red spots on my hands, and I said, that's strange. I don't usually have that kind of spots. And within 20 minutes, 30 minutes, I was getting more and more red and more purple. And I looked at my legs, and oh, that was the same. So I said to Doris, my wife, we'll better get as fast as possible to the emergency ward, because this isn't right. So we went there, and the doctor at the emergency ward, he stood up and took the telephone and shouted in it, you know, we need help. And I was put into this bed and came into a place in the hospital where they help people with cancer and blood diseases. So that was pretty grim and very strange. And at the same time, I had this experience of my awareness watching it all, and not knowing what's going on, what's happening to me in my body. And so I went for a lot of treatment, and it's turned out that I had an autoimmune system disease, which meant that my autoimmune system was attacking my blood pellets. And that's pretty grim, because it means that your blood it can't thicken. So you're just bleeding, and you're bleeding inside, and your organs are bleeding, everything's bleeding. And at one point, and I don't remember what day this was, because they kept giving me blood transfusions, and every time they gave me fresh blood, my immune system would destroy it. So I was put in a bed. I remember it was in the evening, and I'm lying there, and I switch on the television, and they are showing a Chinese splatter movie, you know, with swords and heads and, you know, blood all over the place, and I had this thought, you know, I've just thought to myself, God has humor. Yeah, and I just after thinking that, recognizing that God has something to do with all of this, or spirit or whatever, I had an enormous shift. It was as if everything, you know, the whole situation, me being in the hospital and this crazy movie, and I just felt like something opened up. You can describe this with words, and this is some time ago. So I'm good at telling stories. So sometimes I even think that I'm imagining this, but this was what happened. I had this feeling that the whole room changed I was in, as something happened in my body also, an upward movement of feeling, and everything turned into love. I felt love, really intense love, and this was really mad in the situation, but that was what I felt. And there was next time when I saw the doctors or nurses or other people in the hospital, other patients, I just felt they were the most wonderful people in the whole world. Yeah, yeah. Everything was just illuminated, and the feeling that I had was much as I feel the principles. That when we strip away the layers, whatever, there's something else. There's something else behind all the layers. I could also say this might be equivalent to what people have known as near-death experiences, but I wasn't dying. but I was close to feeling that this could be the end. And I also remember saying to myself, of course, or whatever, if this is the time to go, okay, I've had a good life. So I had this kind of conversation with God, or whatever, inside of me. Yeah. And that was really strong.
Mm.
And I think the feeling of love, it was really, love, peace, and understanding. I had that feeling for the next 14 days, I think. And some other things also started happening. Something in me said, drink green tea. And I didn't at the time like green tea. But it was just, and we'll have to get some green tea. So something emerged that I would call some kind of intelligence from the body, from the mind, from everything, or from nothingness, whatever you call it. Something emerged that seemed to make it quite enjoyable to be in the hospital. And what the doctors were saying were they were going to cut in me, and the prognosis was bad. Well, maybe they get it right, but I probably would have to take steroids for years. There was a lot of things, frightening things. And this kept going on. I think that 2-week period, 3-week period, I had these insights. I had this. I got a mail where there stood something about learning Qigong, something called Gong, and I'm the teacher in that now. And right. I just, after I left the hospital, I had to go to a lot of tests and stuff. But in between, I said to Doris, "Well, we'll have to go to Copenhagen. I have to take this course." And there's a lot of courses and I was too tired to go to Copenhagen. But yeah, there was something in me said, and the next thing that happened was I'm actually an instructor in that, and which is also love. Actually, it's just different ways of expressing what you are.
Mm.
Yeah, and it's really nice to know, because what happened after this, and it's also today, is that before that I had a fear of death, and it's gone. I can't find it. I could have a fear of pain, of course, but death as such is just that's just coming home. Wow. Yeah, and I didn't. So my own idea. What I think happened was that my ego broke down. And that might be a good thing sometimes. If there is actually a self-repairing system inside of me and you. Yeah.
Well, I love that. In that story, you kind of started from. People think about the 3 principles in terms of thought, consciousness, and then mind.
Mm-hmm.
But you kind of started from the kind of mind end of it, seeing that something bigger.
Yeah.
And I think that's the real opportunity for all of us. So many people, myself included, just saw, when you talk about the ego, I suppose I felt, and I think this was the way I was, if I use the right word, or I'll use this word anyway, conditioned. As I grew up and went through life, I was more and more isolated from that something bigger. I felt that the only thing that was making my life what it was, and for the people around me, was me. And so I had to make it all happen. And I developed strategies and ways of coming at life that were all based around, it's me. If I don't do it, then nothing's going to happen. And that when you live from that place, you get more and more isolated from seeing the truth of it, which is that you are inherently, when you just go back to your basic settings of your uniqueness, and every person is unique, then you're perfect. And that bigger, you interact with that bigger power, and that's how life flows through you in the most natural and easy way. And for another reason why I think that you're, seeing mind first, I spent a lot of time thinking about thought. And in a way, Sydney Banks, the missing link, thought being the missing link, it kind of, in a way, it pointed me. I was so busy looking at thought and how thought created my reality that I didn't see this other thing for a while. But it's the other thing that's really powerful. It's the other thing. And that's what I love about your story, is that you saw that first, and you saw the enormity of that, how big that was, and it to me. I mean, I didn't know you before. Maybe Doris would tell us, but I think it changed your life in a big way, right?
Did. Of course, I'm still me in the old ways. Also, it's not like sending you getting a dry cleaning or something. But it's an opening. Sometimes things have to crack to the light can come out. So that's the feeling I have about it. And when we're talking about this, I just remembered my father. He was actually pretty old. He was born in 1899.
Wow.
And he was an English soldier.
Right.
And he was sent to the First World War as 16. He was 15, 16 years old, and he got sent to the Somme because he wanted to. And he said he was older than he was. I read that 300,000 or 400,000 boys were sent to service at the time, and just a note that they actually first really stopped that when one of the prime minister or whatever, someone from Parliament's son got killed. No. They started looking at people's ages. But it was commonly used. So my father is there, and he told me this story. I just remembered it, that he was between, it was a shell firing, and he was between in this no man's land. And at one point, he didn't know where his group were. So he could either run directly into the Germans, or run home, run back. And he told me that at the time, he had this experience that there was a voice telling him which way to run. And I think that's mind, because he was scared shitless, of course. So I think sometimes that's one. It's not a nice way of accessing it, but sometimes people have these stories. And so do I, and so I think the thing is with the principles that we might notice it and then forget it again, or just oh that was just and not understand the principle behind it. That this is actually a working force in our life.
Right. So I mean, it is true that you don't have to know the principles tacitly because you live life that way anyway. I mean, your whole story takes place in a time before you understood the principles, right?
Yeah. So I read Michael Neal's book, and then I read Jamie Smart's book. It was just. So
was that 2013? Or was it...
Yeah, well, the beginning of this year, And it was just like it just rang a bell. Just oh yeah, I know that. I could see several episodes in my life where I've had similar or something pointing that way. And I've always tried to, I've always been seeking it also in a way, but more from an intellectual point of view.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've tried to understand things through my intellect. Studied psychology and did some therapeutic work and all kinds of stuff. I'm certified focusing trainer. I've done a lot of stuff to try to get into this, whatever it is. And very interestingly, I had a small talk with Dick and Bettinger on the chat the other day, asking him about some of these things that I'd experienced. I've been working with focusing, where you go in and feel your felt sense, and you feel how the meaning is being created in your body, and I was just curious, because he's a psychologist. How do you see this from a principles view? And he said, well, the principle is much deeper, because we're not looking for the form. And that really made sense. Yeah. This is form wisdom. So every time it gets a form, that's us making it. Yeah. So when a Buddhist has an experience like this, it'll be Buddha or Hindu Krishna, or we'll have these names for this in all cultures. We'll call it something, and it's really nameless. It doesn't have a name, it doesn't have a form. And just as the universe, they say everything is made up of emptiness, empty space, all of it. Well, almost is, what's actually matter is very, very little.
Yeah.
And we can't grasp that, but we can experience it, we can feel it. And sometimes it might be a shock, or suddenly noticing something you didn't see before, or just being quiet. Yeah.
One of the reasons why I think we connected in Spain was that I think both you and I had spent quite a lot of time looking for intellectual understanding.
Oh yeah.
I've always been a great analyzer and a great thinker, and yet this thing that we've just been talking about, this mind thing, is beyond all that. It's you can't intellectualize it. I think that's what you've just been saying. Really, you try and bring it into form, and as Sid Banks would say, the moment you do that, you're contaminating the original thought, the original concept. I mean, even as they're coming out of my mouth, the words sound wrong to describe this, and that's really interesting. So this year, I've been much more thinking less. For a while this year, I thought that there is a doing to do with the principles, and it's about letting go. It's about not thinking. It's about and there was a poem that I shared on Facebook this week, which is a very long list of things to let go of. But it's all the different kinds of thoughts that people play with in their heads every day, and at the end of this poem, there's a short 2 lines about what happens when you've let go of all of that, when you're in a space to hear that bigger entity. And for me, I've had a really interesting experience this week, which I'd love to share with you. Oh,
please.
Yeah. No. It was Tuesday, and it first happened to me, actually. I'm going to go back a little bit, because it first happened to me in Spain, okay? So in Spain, I took this extra day off, and normally, in my old life, if I can call it that, if I'd take a vacation, it would take me 3 or 4 days to relax, first of all, I'd probably get ill because I'd been holding my whole body in a certain place, and stress and so on and so forth, and that all has to pass and shift. And so 3 or 4 days in, you'd find that you were properly relaxed and feeling easy and natural and so on. And so I went to Spain, and I'm sat on the beach with Yoga Mark, and I'm like, wow, I'm here, relaxed, and I've only been here half a day. 4 days, half a day. There's a huge difference.
Mm.
And this week, I got to Tuesday, and I was talking to a guy that I'm doing something with, and I went to leave, and I said, have a great weekend, and he said, well, it's only Tuesday. And that's because the way I'm feeling at the moment is like, it just feels very relaxed. Every day feels like a weekend day, like that feeling of, well, there's nothing really, there's no pressure on, there's nothing to do, it's nice, things will come to me and I'll do them, and it's just such a relaxed feeling, a relaxed way of living.
Mm.
And I would never have been, in my old days, and it took me a while to get through this. I'd wake up every morning and I'd have like 15 things on my mind to go through. Almost as soon as I open my eyes, these like things to do list would mentally be building up in my head. And the next step for me after that was to kind of listen to this to-do list and then go, right, so that's the to-do list. Now what are we really going to do today? What's interesting that might come along? And I'd almost park the to-do list. Or in fact, the to-do list could be done in about the first half an hour or hour of the day, or at some point you knew you'd do it. So it wasn't a big issue, and it was really the magic of the bigger thing called mind, is when you put all that stuff down and something comes to you that says, oh, you lost me?
No.
Cool, okay. Something that comes to me and says, oh, write a blog, write something today. And I go, well, that wasn't on the to-do list, but feels good. So I'll go off to a coffee bar and write an article, or I'll connect with somebody, or stuff will happen.
I think it's great. It sounds like you're doing the really nice stuff. Yeah.
Well, I think there's almost another doing that I'm going to call unplanning. Mm-hmm. Whenever I used to do stuff, I'd kind of create an action plan, and the first thing I'd be doing would be, right now I know what I've got to do tomorrow. By the end of it, in fact, I'm just doing a bit of work with Steve Light. I put together a document of what needed to be done, and then I realized this is looking horribly like a plan.
Yeah.
This is not good. We're not allowing the magic to come in. We're getting too focused on going here, and that's not good. And I know that he's going to have some great things to bring to the table. So
yeah,
I try not to do that now. Try not to plan it.
So how does that feel, not trying to plan?
Well, if you read my book, Life Beyond Money, you'll probably find that it's certainly at regular points during my journey, I was trying to plan stuff, and I was trying to control life again, and I was back in that thinking of, it's down to me, it's only me that can make this happen. And it's been, for me, some people like you maybe have, and I was just talking to Leanne Brooke Taylor this week, and she called it the Hollywood blockbuster insight, that changed her whole life. Okay. And for me, it wasn't like that. It was like a period of 2 or 3 years of really getting to not even understand it, beyond the understanding of it, and to really, as Elsie calls it, Elsie Spittle, live from a feeling. And I suppose that's one of the reasons why I didn't really connect with Elsie Spittle until the beginning of this year, was because I wasn't ready to understand what she was offering.
May I say something about that?
Yeah, go.
I read one of Elsie Spittle's books, and the first half of it I didn't like it, but somehow or another, halfway, I don't know what happened, but suddenly I understood what she was saying.
Yeah.
My intellect. So I just recognized where I was in the elevator.
Yeah.
Elevator consciousness. So I was just looking at it with without being open, because it's so simple and profound and strong what she says, isn't it? At the same time, it can be darn irritating if you're too much in your thinker, because it's so straightforward wisdom. Simplicity is wisdom, as Sid Banks wrote, and of course. And I can hear many parallels with the stories between our lives. I think I've taken the really long route, just about as long as it's possible. Almost killed me, and it's just life is easier now. It doesn't mean I don't have emotional ups and downs or caused by my thinking, of course, but it just makes it easier to sort out what's going on. Just like, okay, yeah. So had a not so nice experience this afternoon, and well, I just knowing that this will pass. I don't have to really do anything about it, and it did pass, and that's really nice. And before, I would have all kinds of techniques and methods, and I'm not saying that all kinds of techniques and methods. I'm sure they can be used, and sometimes they're okay, but they're not really. There's some bigger quote tool, which isn't a tool, that's behind all of this, and that makes it easier to just accept that. Well, I'm just a little person looking out through my thoughts and ego, and so that's the only problem that there is here, inside of me, and that's helpful.
It's really, I guess what it feels like for me is that when you learn to drive a car, I'm going to talk about a motorcycle now, but
yeah, I know.
Because I love motorcycles, but when you learn to ride or drive, you're concentrating on the mechanics of driving, right? And then at a certain point, you can start to concentrate on navigating. Where are you going? So you stop thinking about driving and you start going places and concentrating on that, working on that. And to me, where the principles has got to is like, while I was understanding the principles, then I was still figuring out how to drive the car. Yeah. Or I'd gone back to looking at how I drive the car and relearning it. And now I feel like actually to spend lots more time trying to figure that out, how to drive the car better, is not so relevant anymore. It's just so where are we going?
Yeah.
Let's look out the window. Let's enjoy the scenery. Let's see where the next town is. And so that's why in the book, Life Beyond Money, there's some great. I have at least 2 motorcycle road trips, and they are such a fantastic metaphor for life, because every day you end up somewhere different. You stop in a village at a bar to drink something that you would never have realized was there. You get chased by a rainstorm across the Spanish plain, and that just feels amazing. You go up the most amazing mountain pass with a view at the top. And, it's just every moment is beautiful, and it unfolds. Really is the meaning for me of the word unfold.
Yeah.
And I got to the stage with my motorcycle trips into Europe where we just bought a one-way ticket right at the back of the book that a lot of people probably don't read because it's behind the resources section.
Mm-hmm.
There's a trip where basically we just got a one-way ticket across to France, and we had nowhere booked to stay, nowhere to go, and it was a beautiful week away. It was a fantastic week away, and it all came through not planning, allowing some other things to move us in particular in the direction for that day, or stop in the next hour or wherever we were going to stop, and just allowing this natural thing that bubbles up into us called wisdom to go, now's the time to stop, now's the time to go, now's the time to turn left, and it's so great that we have that. And then I think where Elsie Spittle and Chip Chipman take it is, so now you've got the principles allows you to live more fully, more freely, more easily, and personally, I'm certainly seeing that in the way that life occurs for me right now.
Yeah. So it's and I think it's been underway for a long time because I'm together with Doris, and she's always been very much better at doing that than I was. I'm getting better at it. It's because I remember one time we were at a camp in Belgium, and we were camping. A little tent and a car. That was all.
Yeah.
And we're sitting outside, and it starts to rain. And I start saying, "Oh, it's raining! It's raining! It's And she's just sitting there smiling, getting wet. Yeah. So that's just, well, why aren't you rushing in to get some clothes, or it's raining? And I think she said something like, well, and so just being in what happened. I remember, this is many years ago, I remember that was kind of provoking for me, because you can't just do that. And I'm also experiencing with the principles, for some people, until they get it themselves, or it might sound a bit weird, not planning and going with whatever, being with whatever happens. But the thing is that actually, the more we plan, the less we experience of what's really going on. And one more thing, we're actually cheating ourselves for the real, the real experience of life, because the plan has become more important than life itself.
Yeah.
It means it's actually a kind of addiction we have.
Yeah.
A kind of fetish, actually. I thought of that because that's when you project your feelings or whatever, sexuality or whatever, you project it onto something that really isn't real. And we all do that. It's power of thought. So we can make anything. People even make guns sexy. I don't know how they do that, but it's like it's a big industry, isn't it?
Yeah.
So in a way, just letting go of these ideas and thoughts that are just contaminated by all kinds of cultural debris, and just trying to be more honest to what's going on. Yeah, and this is not a state you're in all the time. I'm not in it all the time. It's just, but I see more and more of it. It's like the veil is being more and more, becoming clearer.
Yeah.
And that's a nice way to go. That isn't a direction like following a plan or taking some steps, because it's actually all everywhere. So it doesn't. You can't go you don't have, you don't have to go to Himalaya or a special course or anything to have this experience. You don't have to read so many books. Actually, you just need to be open for that. It's there all the time, and that's pretty awesome. And my intellect doesn't understand a word of it.
Yeah, no, that's true. One of the things that was going on for me was my intellect coming in and going, well, how's this going to work? Surely it can't be like this. Those kind of thoughts. But the more you see, you just talked about that you get more and more into that place and the veil being lifted, so that you see something more than just your thinking, just your thoughts. And I do too. And even Dick and Bettinger, when I'm putting together Living from Wisdom, his workshop was the start of it. And then a year on, I recorded him again, and that's going to be the next workshop, the one that's just going up now. And even he sees it differently to the way that he saw it when he was sharing it a year ago, And that's beautiful, because I was thinking, well, I've already videoed him once, so why would I want to video him again? But it's a totally different then emphasis, and then it's a lot of what we've been talking about too. It's about when you let all that thinking go, it allows a freshness, he calls it, to come in. And that's, I think, what you and I are enjoying more and more of, is a freshness in our life. And maybe it's something that Doris and Beck, my partner, are way ahead of us with, because you talk about the long road. I did the same sort of thing, but Beck always says to me, well, that it was all worth it. Everything you learned, everything you did, it all got you here, didn't it? And it's true. It is true. And I'm really grateful to be in the place that I'm in right now, because the more I go in this direction, the easier life is, the happier I am, the more satisfied.
Yeah, and it's language tricking us, isn't it? This direction, and because I remember Sydney Banks writing that it's a metaphor when we say that mind it's inside, look inside. It's a metaphor. It's not a place. So for me, it's something that my thoughts, brain, whatever, I can't receive it directly. I can perceive some of it through my thinking. Even when I have these pure thoughts, it's still some kind of thinking, yeah. But it's a different kind of. It feels different. It feels as if you know that it's right. Like the story with my father, and the story from the hospital. It's an old story. It's 5 years old, and it didn't. It has a freshness sometimes when I talk about it or remember it. But to some extent, that's this freshness or this. Renewal or whatever, it's also something going on a daily basis. It's just you just have to notice it, and you don't have to have these, as you're also saying, it's a gradual thing. It's not that I was in this crisis at the time had a lot to do with the kind of form it got when I'm explaining it, how I experience it, but in reality, of course, I can't say anything else than it was a terrific experience that's beyond my, really beyond anything. Even though my thinking, so I gave it a form, as whatever form it comes in. But it's the energy. I think it's something. And it's also a kind of guide in your life. For me, it's a kind of guide because I'm getting better getting acquainted with it. Okay, and doing what feels right is becoming easier. because and also when I can't explain why. Usually, before I had to find the explanation. This is make it up maybe. But now it's more like, okay, I have this sense that something, yeah, I'll do that, or I won't do that, and that's different. Yeah. It's really interesting talk we're having.
No, it's. I'm guessing that there are people out there who, lived in that old way that I'm going to make my plan and control my life, etc., and it's all down to me. And what we're talking about is something very, very different, but subtle in lots of ways, but very big in others. And I loved what you were talking about letting, following this guide, this food, and Elsie Spittle talks about it as, living from a feeling, just go with that feeling. And Dick and Bettinger talks about it as, let your own thinking subside and then see what freshness comes to you. Mm. And I think they're pointing us in a great direction. It's just, it's not about, like I said, I couldn't have understood that a year ago. I wasn't in the right place to. And in fact, it's not about understanding. It's about letting the understandings subside, and then all of a sudden, you called it the knowing what's true, feeling that, seeing it, hearing it, whatever. So lovely. So I'm really glad to have. Like I said, you guys were for me, the magic in that. Not that Sheila and Mark aren't magic too; they are, of course.
Oh yes, everyone. Yeah.
Going back to, exactly. But just meeting you and having this conversation, and just seeing that you've been in a similar place to me, and that allowed me to see where I've been and how I've been, was a really useful, really lovely moment for me. So it kind of affirmed something about, I've actually come quite a long way quite a long way forward in a new direction. Mm. So thank you.
And thank you. We have had the same experience meeting you in Spain, and it's nice to have this talk, and we'll do some more together because it just feels right. Yeah.
Yeah. Good. So I think we've done our 45 minutes, in fact, slightly over, and strangely, as usual, I haven't got any questions from. I'm just looking, and I haven't got any questions from the audience. So I don't know why that is, but one of these days, people will start writing in, well, actually they are, but it's not necessarily while we're on air. I'm hearing a lot more about people's journeys, especially as they start interacting with things like Living from Wisdom, and no, it's I'm loving where this whole thing has taken me. So, and I've loved this conversation this evening. So, I'd love to do some more. I'm sure some things will come to us to do.
Oh yeah.
In due course.
Well, thank you here from Denmark, and it's been a privilege to be invited and a great experience. Thank you.
No, thank you. And if people want to contact you, Chris, and talk to you about what you were doing in Denmark,
well,
how do they do that?
Now it'll have to be the Facebook group, Free Principles. Because I'm not finished with my website, but when it's finished, it'll be there, and maybe you can put a link in the page or whatever.
Sure. So if people can get you through Facebook.
But my name is we aren't very many people in the world called Chris Nunan.
Yeah.
So that's a way of finding me.
Yeah. Perfect. All right. Well, thanks very much. Have a great rest of your evening, everybody, and Chris, and. Yeah, speak soon.
Yeah, bye-bye.